Leadership with Dr. Dave, where we are on a mission to answer 4 questions from some of the best leaders and leadership minds in the country. So with us, we are pleased to have our special guest, Chris Cebollero. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Dave. How you doing? Great to be.
Great. Glad you're here.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
For everybody that's out there that doesn't know, Chris had a license for a radio station a long time ago, and this is where the show actually started, was one of his radio shows. They had quite a bit of them, and most of them were really, really good. I enjoyed listening to a lot of the hosts that you had on there, so I kind of missed not hearing some of those, but you've been busy the last couple of years, so with a few endeavors, let's just say, we'll certainly get into that. But for those who don't know you, I'm sure there's a lot of folks that do, but for the ones that don't, introduce yourself to our listeners, give us a little bit of a background, like just give us the whole scoop on Chris Cebollero.
Yeah, well, I'm a Pisces. I'm 5 foot now.
Maybe not that much of a scoop, but
that's so. I'm a #1 best-selling leadership author, internationally recognized as a leadership specialist. I do have a coaching practice where I do individual, group, and executive coaching, and then leadership development and organizational process improvement. I cut my teeth on being a paramedic back in the old days, and I do still keep my hand in medicine, regardless of what I do on the leadership development, organizational process improvement side. I just can't get away from the love of medicine and, training other people to take care of folks on what could be the worst day of their life. And, that's kind of a little bit about me. I always believe in creating opportunity. And whatever I'm doing today, I may not be doing tomorrow, but opportunity creates success. Success creates money. Money creates wealth. And who doesn't love that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So like I said, same way I cut my teeth in fire and EMS, and still have my paramedic, and let's just still kind of try to keep active in that realm as well. So I think once it gets into you, it's kind of hard to completely walk away, even though you kind of get your fingers into different endeavors. So just for them, and we'll link to everything below in the description, but name out a couple of your books, because I know they've been definitely #1 bestsellers. So what are some of the books that you have?
I've got a couple, and I was hoping, Dave, that if they ever make them into a movie, you'd consider playing me when that happens. But no, I've got a few. My first book was Ultimate Leadership: 10 Rules for Success. Dave, we've talked about it. In the beginning, I was a horrible leader, and I had to develop rules really to kind of be a better leader. Rule number 1, never allow your emotions to dictate your actions. How do you think I learned that rule? And then my second book was Ultimate Success: Strategic Leadership Excellence. Now that you know the rules, these are the skills that you needed to have to become a good leader. My next book was actually a collaboration with some of my peers in the United States. Dear younger self, my advice to you, if we can get in a time machine and go back to our, meet our 25-year-old self, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to make our transition easier? Of course, mine was shut up and listen more. You're not as important as you think you are. And the last one I did was Ultimate Coaching: Skills for Developing a Highly Engaged Workforce. I think the progressive discipline model is antiquated. We need to get away from it and instill a culture of coaching in our organizations. And I'm writing a new one right now that I'll keep to myself. I'm actually going to bring my son in on it because he's taken over a lot of the business aspects of the company, and really trying to do that project with him is kind of fun.
Outstanding. You talk about books. I was sitting there looking right over the top to one of my bookshelves over there, and I still see the Critical Care Transport book that's got your name on it from back in the day. Yeah,
I think that it's one of the things, you and I think, are really great at educating, right? And, we were both, and that's how we kind of met, was in the EMS world as we started to branch off into work outside of EMS. And, we're teachers. And if we want to complain about our career field, we have to be willing to fix it. And we did that through education. So whether you're doing podcasts, or whether you're doing classes, or whether you're writing articles, or speaking in front of an audience, it's all about teaching, right? And, we do it inside and have a clinical aspect. And that's how I got into the leadership realm, Dave, was, really learning to be a good leader inside my EMS organization, and then being able to take it outside of EMS. People invited me to speak, and I was like, this might be pretty cool. And 20 years later, look at where we are.
Nice. One thing I like about just the whole EMS curriculum is that there is a leadership component. It's not very well advertised, I guess, but there is a big leadership component to it, even if it's not overt. It's one of those, hey, you're the highest certified person on the scene. You're the one running the code. You're the one, giving the orders, doing the stuff. I mean, obviously working underneath of, OMD's protocols and under a physician, but basically you're the one running the show. And so when, I like the fact of that type of leadership training just in the occupational space, because hey, it's like you said, worst day of someone's life. I mean, it's Cessna into a nursing home kind of thing, and if you're flipping out, man, everyone's going to lose it. Right. And if you look like, hey, this is calm, cool, and collective, and we do this every day, they're like, okay, well, Chris isn't freaking out, so maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah. And that's what it is. Right. I mean, I've always looked at some of these career fields that it takes special people to do it. Right. Like being a hospice nurse. I couldn't be a hospice nurse. Right. And I think that that's a challenge, but people will say that about paramedics, that we run into danger when people are running away. But one of the things that I think is really important here is that we have to be able to be that sense of confidence and calm to the people who don't know any better. And, Dave, you've been on those scenes and those calls where people who think they're dying and you know better, and you've got to be able to help them to feel comforted. And you do that with confidence. You do that with knowledge. You do that with skill. You do that with ability. But it's presenting that in a way that gives people the comfort to know when they hand you, their 3-month-old baby, that you are going to deliver the highest quality of care that you can. And they know that they can trust you in that short amount of time that you're with them.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right. And it's a couple of things that the more I really go back and look and think about it, I think there's a lot of things that lead to success for what we were doing to what we are doing. Because I think when you venture into the leadership realm, if you want to be successful as a leader, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this before we jump into the first question, but I feel just like being a paramedic, if you don't have a genuine concern for people, I mean, your team, your organization, it's just not gonna, that corporate speak only goes but so far. But I think you really have to be successful. You have to have a genuine concern and liking for people. So what are your thoughts?
No, I think you're right. I mean, and you can't teach compassion, right? I could make you the best paramedic in the world, right? And that's why I got into the education business, because I wanted people to be the best in the world, the best that they could be. But you can't teach them to care, right? So that has to be intrinsic. That has to be internal. And to your point, as a leader, it's the same thing as, I mentioned in the start of the show, I wasn't a very great leader in the beginning. And it's because I didn't care about the members of the workforce. I cared about me, and I cared about my resume, and I cared about the positions I was getting, and I cared about my next position. And once somebody shakes you and say, that's not how we treat people, it opens your eyes to the art and science of leadership. And you have to know and understand the science before you can paint the portrait of organizational success.
Absolutely, 100%. So with that, let's jump into our first question. So what does leadership mean to you, and what does good leadership look like?
What does leadership mean to me? It really is the ability, and I'm a John Maxwell disciple, and I'm actually part of the John Maxwell team as well as you are. And John teaches us that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. That if we can't influence people, we can't lead people. Leadership isn't a noun. It's not a title. It's not achievements. I've written 4 #1 best-selling leadership books. Does that make me a leader? No, it makes me some guy that knows how to write. I did write with crayon, but I still wrote them, right? But it's really, leadership is an action. It's a verb. And we need to be able to show our leadership every day. And that means that regardless of our title, if we can influence people, we can lead people. Doesn't make a difference if you're a janitor. Doesn't make a difference if you're the CEO. One of the things that I believe and that I share with my clients often is there is no one job in the organization that's more important than the other. Whether you're the CEO or whether you're the person who's putting mail in the slot, if that person isn't putting mail in the slot, I am not able to function as the CEO of that organization. So I believe that good leadership is all about influence, and it's showing that influence every day, adding value to people every day, ensuring that they feel that they are engaged and satisfied and productive. I talk to people all the time to say, you have money invested in this company. Well, you didn't put money in, but your dedication, your commitment, and your passion has a price. And you are putting that into this organization, and this organization belongs to you as well. So what does it look like? That everybody's in line towards the vision. I think the vision statement is the most important component to the success of an organization. And a lot of them sit on the shelf. This is how old I am. They sit on the shelf. I don't think any books are on the shelf anymore when it comes to vision. But we have to be able to work towards that vision every day. We are wired to think in pictures. And in the absence of a vision, we have no idea where we're going. And if the leaders of the organization don't believe in a vision or don't follow a vision, why does the workforce ever need to think about it?
They wouldn't. And one of the things that makes me the most upset is just one of my biggest pet peeves is, like I said, the two times that you ever see vision, mission, and values is one, when you're in new hire orientation, you're going through the employee handbook, or two, if you're going to the CEO's office to get your butt reamed and you just happen to see it posted on the wall. But what you see on the wall and what's actually happening in real life from the leadership is it doesn't jive. And that always bothers me.
But that's the culture, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
what I expect in the organizations that I work in is that I want to look at any leader and point my finger and say, recite the vision statement for me.
Everybody in leadership should know the why behind what they were doing. And I've told this to some CEO clients before. I like the idea of, if you can take and, well, one, create some back channel communications, so where you're not blowing up the chain of command, but where you really get some honest feedback on what's going on the ground. But more importantly, take every single position, every single job description, and trace it back to that vision and mission. Like, if I wasn't taking out the trash, if I wasn't putting the mail into slots, if I wasn't doing this, and we couldn't do this, we couldn't do this and do that, and we couldn't help people with disabilities, whatever the mission is.
Right.
Being able to trace that back so everybody knows that their job is crucial to being able to fulfill that vision and mission.
Understood. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, man. But as you mentioned it, the culture isn't there, and people don't believe that. But it has to be a core component of the success of the organization. Vision is where we're going. Strategy is how we get there. And culture is the behavior of the organization on the journey of reaching the vision.
Yep. And there's a lot of definitions of culture, and I cover that in one particular keynote that I do. But one of the things one of my favorite definitions of it is, culture is what we tolerate. What you tolerate every day, what you like, your standards, we say this, but then we actually let people get away with that. It's like, okay, well, what's really the culture? What we're saying, or what we're allowing people to what we just more or less tolerate? And it's just a different definition, but I think it's something that doesn't come up that often.
Yeah, I do believe that what you permit, you promote.
Yeah.
But if you're allowing that to happen, you're not leading and influencing your organization.
No.
And that's where that challenge comes in, right? So I have an expectation that we are on this journey to reach this vision. And during this journey, this is how we act in reaching that vision. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah.
We are doing this. We are going to achieve these goals, and we are going to make this vision a reality. We are going to be able to live our vision statement every day. And if we don't, we fail the organization that day.
Yeah. Well, and wrap this up on culture, and then we'll go to our next segment and our next couple of questions. But a few weeks back, I interviewed a gentleman who was instrumental in Chick-fil-A corporate's their customer experience, and we were joking about how Truett Cathy went to the Ritz-Carlton and just got this extreme, wonderful customer service experience. So like, hey, how can I take this top tier experience down to, fast food, something that's not that way? And we talked about it. It was like 3 different big, huge corporate get-togethers. You're talking to all the leadership about doing the whole my pleasure thing, right? And it's just year after year, like it wasn't sinking through. And you're thinking, it's a private organization, this guy owns it, right? It's like his word is, but it just took forever for him to continue to sell it and sell it and sell it before and of course, secret shopper to death and stuff like that before it finally holding people accountable before it finally become part of the culture. So even in a great organization that's got a great track record for that, making those kinds of cultural changes are really, really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, without a dedicated plan, and the research is out there, Dave, and you and I are research people. Takes you 18 months to 2 years to change a culture, right? Takes you 14 days to put a culture in place, but it takes you a year and a half to 2 years to change it back. So if you're not diligent on that culture, and if you're not pushing that culture every day, and you say that the expectation is this is the way we're going to act, you get what you get. And in that case, I wouldn't suspect that you have a successful organization. I consult and work with a lot of companies, and I do organizational process improvement, leadership, personal and professional development, and organizations are broken, and it's because they don't have a vision or they don't live the vision, and it's because they have no good strategy, and it's the whole humdrum every day, right? There's no end point, and I think that's where the challenges are. When everybody buys into the vision, everybody buys into the goals to reach a vision, and we're all working towards the same goal, amazing things happen inside organizations.
100%. And like I said, I focus my work specifically on senior leadership teams because I just have I feel it all starts at the top. I'm like, if the biggest point of leverage, for productivity, engagement, anything in an organization comes from that senior leadership team. There's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of research to back that up. But with that, let's go ahead and end this segment of Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave. But we will come back in just a moment with our next two questions. See you in a bit. Welcome back to Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave. We are here with our special guest, Chris Cebollero, and we're going to jump headlong into our second question. So what was one of the biggest leadership challenges you've had to face?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting question, and certainly goes off into a lot of different roads. But I think the biggest leadership challenge was my own ego. Was being able to say that you're not as important as you think you are, and then becoming a student of leadership. I had no leadership skills. I was trained in the military, and the military is not conducive to working in the private sector. And when you come out with that leadership style, it doesn't work for people. But I still had the ego that I was in charge. I was the boss. You'll do what I tell you to do and not what I ask, and not what you think should be done. And I went that way for a lot of years, Dave. And again, the book on the 10 Rules for Success really had to kind of outline all the things I was doing wrong. Never allow your emotions to dictate your actions. Don't waste time and energy on things you can't control. There are no problems, there are just solutions. Quit pointing your fingers at people and just fix the darn problem, right? But until you are able to have good self-awareness, you don't have the ability to say, where are the challenges? It makes no difference if you can communicate. It makes no difference if you have good conflict resolution skills. If you don't know why you're doing the things or having the reactions or making the decisions that you make, you are going to be an inadequate leader. So the biggest leadership challenge is not taking yourself so seriously and realizing that you are not as important as you think you are. If you have the affinity, if you have the skill, if you have the ability to influence and motivate people and to inspire them to do a great job, that's where being a good leader comes in. So all of my mistakes and failures and lessons learned come out of the fact of ego, come out of the fact of having poor leadership skill, coming out of the fact of wanting to feather my own nest. And let me tell you what, man, when you are able to see that there's a bigger mission with the art and science of leadership, and you practice that science and you turn it into an art, the things that you can do are amazing. And when I was able to get out of my own way, it made a big difference for me.
Nice. That's nice. Well, like I said, I think a lot of folks fall into that category and don't even realize it. I mean, it's like, so you're just thinking about, okay, what do I have to get done in your own career and what's going on? So, I mean, it's an easy kind of trap to fall into, and certainly don't fault anybody for being there, but it does take a little bit of effort and deliberate effort to kind of, you step back and take a look at that from a bigger viewpoint and realize, oh wow, okay, this is what I'm actually doing. And I laugh because when you're talking about getting out of the military and actually going into leadership and really, hey, I'm the boss and you're going to do what I say, both of us, having a background with Maxwell leadership, the first thing I thought about right away was that the 5 levels of leadership, that level
Right.
1 kind of positional, hey, I can stand in between you and a paycheck, and so you have to do what I say because.
Right. And it was one of the things that I've always said, if you give people the power to feed you, you also give them the power to starve you. And, that is really where that egotism of leadership comes in. A lot of people will stick in the positions they're in because they don't know where to go next. But it's because of the egotism that a leader has that, you know what, I give you a job, you should be happy about that. That's not how that works, right? All our employees are volunteers. They could very easily, even though we pay them, they still choose to be with us.
Yeah.
They pick up and leave us at any time. And if we're not doing what we need to do to help them grow and get to the next level, we fail them every day.
100%. And one of the things too, you talk about them volunteering to be there and also volunteering to leave. I think one of the big things that we don't pay attention to, because if you're a CEO or business owner, your CFO is never going to give you this on a P&L statement or a balance sheet because it's just not part of GAAP accounting. But you don't realize how expensive turnover is and how expensive disengaged employees are. I mean, it's amazing doing some, looking at some Gallup research and seeing exactly what kind of those costs, are. And it's staggering to see. But same thing that happens all the time in businesses, and you realize, well, I think personally, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But I think the days of, I remember, coming up and people like, hey, basically, if you don't do this, I'll can you. And hey, I've got 50 people waiting in line to take your job. Well, I think them days are gone.
I think that, and that's how we grew up, right? We grew up with the baby boomers, and the baby boomers were don't let the door hit your butt on the way out, right? I mean, they didn't care. Yeah. And I think that we had a lot of challenge with that because that's all we knew. And when we started to work with the millennials, they weren't having it. And we had to be able to change our practice. Is it my way or the highway? Is it gone away? I don't think it is, right? I do think there are people that still have the attitude of I'm the boss. And I think it's a bad attitude to have.
Well, I think the reality of, hey, I've got 50 people waiting in line to take your job part of it. I was going to say it's a tight labor market. And that part of it, I think, that ship has sailed.
Yeah. I mean, I got to tell you what, though. I mean, I just looked at the latest numbers that came out, 134,000 jobs last month, but unemployment's at 4%. So it may be that there are a lot of people that would line up, right? It's not of nobody has a job anymore. It's the days of, who can I get to do this job? But I think there could be, I think it's going to wane and waffle as we go forward. So you may have a good point.
Yep. I do remember when unemployment was in that 2 to 3% range. And real wages were going up because I know a lot of folks around here that are business owners that folks I deal with the chamber and Rotary that were just struggling to find anybody because there just wasn't anybody out there. It was that tight versus people just didn't want to work. So I think, it does wax and wane, but, having that attitude, I think that, hey, there's 100 people there, ready to replace you at any time. It's like, it's cheaper. It's kind of like the old, it's cheaper to keep her, as far as turnover goes. It's like turnover is expensive. And there's almost like a supply demand curve. There's a certain point to where they have to be there a certain amount of time producing before they kind of at least break even on, how much it costs for you to recruit and hire and train them and get them up and on board and get them up to speed. And like I said, that's a lot of costs that I think a lot of folks don't really internalize sometimes. Right. And when it goes to, I'll just hire somebody else. It sounds good, but maybe not so much. So that's a perfect segue into our next question. So what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes leaders make today?
Is that they don't understand the true measurement of leadership success.
Speak to me.
And that is the true measurement of leadership success is how engaged, satisfied, and productive the workforce is. And our job is to get work done through other people. And then we need to try to get the very best out of those people. If we don't understand that our success is in the hands of the workforce, we will fail the organization every day. And that's why leadership development is so important. We have to teach our leaders the art and science of how to deal with the most precious resource we have, and that's the workforce. Again, as the CEO of the organization, how often am I touching the customers and the clients and the patients that we see? And it's not a lot. And I made this comment earlier today to someone. I don't consider myself to be a paramedic anymore. I consider myself to be an administrator. And that means that when the people who are doing the work want to change a process, I need to listen to them because they're the ones who are doing the work. Yep. So what we have to remember as leaders is we have to be able to take, when people come to us, Dave, they come to us with knowledge and they come to us with skill and they come to us with ability. But I am not hiring you for what you did in the past. I'm hiring you for what you're going to do for me in the future. And if I don't grow your knowledge and your skill and your ability, I'm only getting what you already gave your previous employer. So now when we start to think about this from the aspects of the true measurement of leadership success, it's about engagement and satisfaction. When you have an employee who's engaged and they love coming to work and they're satisfied in their position, watch how they treat your clients and customers. As a matter of fact, treat your workforce like they're your clients and customers, and watch how they treat your clients and customers.
100%. We mentioned that on a earlier podcast that it's kind of the contrarian view that the customers are not the most important thing. Even though you got the Peter Druckerism that the purpose of a business is to obtain and keep a customer. The biggest thing is you treat your employees like gold, your frontline staff like gold, and they will treat your customers good. Because, like I said, I joke about there's two things I joke about all the time as far as in organizations: the best filtration system in the world and the worst filtration system in the world. Frontline staff is the worst filtration system in the world because you can't dump on them all the organizational crap and just dump on them, treat them like dirt, and then you think they're gonna blue skies and puppy dogs and rainbows and unicorns to your customers. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. And so I mean, you got to treat them great for them to be able to give a good customer experience. But then I joke about the best filtration system in the world being middle management. It's not activated charcoal, not reverse osmosis, but it's middle management. Because if you got a department head that things are not going the greatest, they're not going to be going to the CEO or the COO and saying, hey, I got a dumpster fire going on in my department, and people are not happy and they're leaving, or vice versa. You might get a employee engagement survey, and I mean the frontline staff just scorched the organization, and that's they may have a stroke about that in the boardroom, but that's not going to trickle all the way down to the past that department head level, director level to get to the employees either. So, and it's good. I mean, there's great people that are in middle management, just as an organ, it's just the way it's set up. Unfortunately, I think a lot of corporations, I talk about this in one keynote, the incentive structure, you got a department head, if they don't hit their KPIs and they don't hit their budget, then they're not going to get their bonus. Mama doesn't go to Hawaii and you're on the couch. It's like, I'm not going to be on the couch, right? So I'm going to hit my KPIs and budget, but that doesn't incentivize you to reach across to other departments and help them and help grow overall revenue. So I'm certainly
that's why you need to have enterprise goals as well, and not just individual goals, right? So It's true. I mean, in the bonus structure that I'm in, 70% are individual, 30% is enterprise. And if we don't put more on what's happening across the enterprise, we should lose some of that money, man. So I think that's an important component.
100%. That's great that they incentivize those structures that way, because a lot of them are just individual departmental goals or individual goals. And like I said, it doesn't do a lot of good for the organization. And like I said, you certainly understand why people would absolutely do that. It was just self-preservation to a certain extent. But with that, I think that's a good portion to we'll end this second segment, and we'll get back with our last question, and we will wrap up and tell listeners how to connect with you and everything like that. So we will be back with Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave in just a moment. All right, welcome back to our final segment of Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave. We are here with our special guest, Chris Cebollero. And Chris, what do you think is the best way for leaders to improve their leadership skills?
Well, I think it's all about learning. What is your plan? One of the things that I always encourage people to do is go to Google and type in the top leadership characteristics. And then I want you to go ahead and pick a few of those, and I want you to write them down. And then I want you to think about, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being skill mastery, 1 being you suck at it, where do you rate yourself, right? And if you're a 4, then you need to put yourself on a position to get to a 10, and what's going to get you to skill mastery. And if you have a leader, if you're a leader out there and you have people, give them this task. But then your responsibility is to help them get to skill mastery. Remember, I talked about earlier that they come to us with some knowledge, they come to us with some skill, they come to us with some ability, and it's our job to help them grow to skill mastery. Another thing to do is get in, we talk about job description. You need to get into the job description. You need to outline on a piece of paper what the skills are that you need to complete that job, and you need to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. When I build leadership development programs for organizations, it all starts with the job description, because as you mentioned, the job description should be written on the vision, which is then written on strategic goals. But we should all have the same job description, but we have different responsibilities within the in the tasks, right? We should all have fiduciary responsibility to the budget. We should all know about resource management. We should all understand, but my level of fiduciary responsibility and the person who's stuffing the envelopes and the slots, it may be a little bit different. So, but you get into the job description, you outline the skills that are in the job description, and then you grade yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, and you make the determination where you fall, and then you figure out the plan to get you to 10. We do not invest in our own personal and professional development, but nobody else is going to do it. Yeah. So if we're not invested into our own, we need to be able to find somebody that can assist us. And whether it's your podcast, Dave, or articles that you write, or classes that you teach, or, you talked about your keynotes. You're a very, very inspiring and motivating speaker. And if you've not had Dr. Dave come to your organization or come to your event, you're missing out. I always try to get and hear him as much as I can. I think I said it like you wrote it, Dave, didn't I? Isn't that?
That's exactly it. Thank you.
Okay.
Checks in the mail.
Okay, thank you. But really, that's what we do, right? Is that we need to seek outside assistance in our growth and in our development. And but you're in charge of it. And that's the simplest way that I tell people to start. Because then from that, if you know that conflict resolution is a 3 and you want to get to a 10, what are you doing to develop that? Is it podcasts? Is it articles? Is it TED Talks? But then you have to find the ways to do it. Right. So it starts with the foundation. And the foundation is, where are my challenges? Where are my weaknesses? Where are my lessons learned? And then from there, you develop the plan of how to get to skill mastery.
Well, I don't think that there's an easier time to be able to find resources out there to be able to help you with that than now. I mean, like I said, just going on Google, even just going to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm trying to work on this, help me develop a plan to get better at these particular skills. And especially all the resources that are on YouTube. I don't think you can get a better time of the volume of information that's out there if you really wanted to try to work on self-development on your own. I think the worst part about it is, and this is where engaging somebody like yourself is the best part, is you can get the information, but sometimes having the accountability and the that 30,000 foot view to kind of guide in a certain, okay, there's a lot of information, but maybe for your particular case, this might be the best route. You might want to consider that. And then, like I said, just having that kind of strategic viewpoint, but also accountability as well.
Agreed. But again, who's going to take that time for you? Are you hoping that someone's going to knock on a door and say, Dave, I have your leadership development plan here. Come on, it's time for you to stop procrastinating, and you need to be able to get it. No, that's not how it works, man. No. Nobody cares more about you than you do. And if you're not going to invest in yourself, you're getting exactly what you want.
Yeah, there are some good companies that are very deliberate about, when you hit a certain level, being intentional about, driving them into leadership development programs as they're moving up the chain. They're few and far between. And like I said, those are gold when you can get them. But like I said, that most of the time, that's more of a structural thing. And it's not the, like you said, it's people aren't going to care about you more than you're going to care about yourself. So if you want to grow and develop, you have to invest the time into it yourself, and the money and the resources to kind of, hey, what do I need to do to get better? And sometimes that's reaching out to other people and figuring out, okay, well, where am I missing it? Like I said, a good 360 assessment. There's all kinds of different other assessment tools that are out there to kind of figure out, hey, where am I at? Where are my skills at? What do I need to improve on? And once you kind of figure out that baseline, like you said, just going through the traits and doing your 1 to 10 that you mentioned, figuring out, okay, well, these are the 3 or 4 things I need to work on, or the 2 or 3 things. Now, how am I going to create a plan to do it? Sometimes just the self-awareness of where am I at right now is, the most important. And then you can kind of go from there.
Right. And you mentioned self-awareness. I think that is the most important leadership characteristic. It's not how well you communicate. It's not how well you motivate. It's not how well you inspire. It's not how your conflict resolution skills are. If you don't know the whys of what you do, why you do it, why you behave the way you do, why you act like you do, you're never going to fix it, right? No one's ever going to want to be inspired by you. And I think that should be the number one goal. I should stop saying it. And I should say, if you're going to do this exercise that I've talked about today, and I encourage you to try it, put self-awareness down. Self-awareness should be a 10. And when we think of Maslow's hierarchy of need, self-actualization is getting to the point of being the best that you can be. I challenge the fact of saying we never get to self-actualization. Because if we think about Maxwell and his 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, law number 3 is the law of process, that leadership doesn't develop in a day, but it develops daily. We should never get to self-actualization. We should continually grow and polish ourselves to get to the next level.
Yeah, I think about it is that you get closer and closer and closer to that line, but you never actually touch it. You keep developing the process, and you're absolutely right. I love how he talks about leadership being a crock pot versus a microwave. It's a long, slow process, and I said you never are finished with that lifelong learning process on developing as a leader. And I think most folks are, if they haven't, it'd be probably wise to delve into some of Dr. Maxwell's books in leadership, because I think there's some sage wisdom in there that I think we can all get some use out of. But with that, tell folks how they can connect with you, your company, your books, website, connect with you on LinkedIn. Basically, like, hey man, I want to check this guy Chris out quite a bit more. How do they go about doing that?
Just call 911. No, I'm just
like, that doesn't look like the guy on the podcast. What the heck?
You can go to my website, www.chriscebollero.com. I'm also on the social sites. You can find me on LinkedIn, Chris Cebollero. Certainly, if you want to go to X and follow me at Chief of EMS. And certainly my email is chris@chriscebollero.com. But Dave, I got to tell you, we've worked together for a while. We've known each other for a bit. We've been on a couple projects together. I am a fan of the show when I see it on TikTok. Hopefully we'll get to still use and see your unique style of interviewing and really kind of pulling stuff out of the guests that you have. You have a really great knack of conversation. You're the Howard Stern of TikTok.
Without the crazy hair.
That's right. So
and the hookers. I've got a definitive lack of hookers around.
But I do appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to your audience, and happy to come back anytime.
No, we will definitely have you back. And with that, we'll put all the links to all your connections there in the description. And we will see you all next time on Conversations on Leadership with Dr. Dave. Take care and have a great week. All right, that's the recording, man. I want to make sure, like I said, a lot of times I'd have probably followed up on a